Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Comic Source. I'm your host, Jace. This is another creator-owned spotlight, if you will. We're here today to talk about a property near and dear to my heart. Legacy of Kain. Soul Reaver is the property. Very famous video game series. And I have the writer of Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver, The Dead Shall Rise, which is coming to Kickstarter soon, sometime this month. It's a prequel series, and one of the writers, Joshua Viola, is joining me today to tell us all about it. So, Josh, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So, yeah, for those not familiar, as I said, a video game series, very popular. PlayStation 2 is where I had it. I'm not a gamer per se, but man, I loved this game back in the day. It's one of the few action figures, Raziel, that I actually got, like a video game action figure. But Josh, for those not familiar, give an overview of kind of the Legacy of Kain series, who Raziel is. I mean, obviously we're going to have to do like the Cliff Notes version because this is a really rich world that was created for this series of video games. So for those that aren't familiar, why don't you just give us kind of a brief overview of that world?
Sure, yeah. It's the Legacy of Kain series. There's 4 games in that series. Blood Omens. There's Blood Omen, Blood Omen 2, Soul Reaver 2, and Legacy of Kain Defiance. So there's 5 games in the series. And it's very much like I said, like I've been telling people that aren't familiar, it's Game of Thrones with vampires, is the quick and dirty version. It follows 2 protagonists. There's Kain, and there's Raziel. Kain is sort of this nobleman turned vampire. And I apologize, my 2-year-old's in the background. I hope that's not coming through. He's a nobleman turned vampire, and really it's a pretty complex story, but it's a story about destiny and fate and betrayal. And Kain, after he's been turned and he's made his choice, he's sort of on a path to change his destiny, and that obviously includes the destiny of others, namely Raziel. And Raziel is a character that came about in Soul Reaver, which in his human form, he was a vampire hunter, a Seraphan inquisitor. He died, and then many centuries later, Kain resurrects him as his vampire lieutenant. That's how Soul Reaver 1 opens. Raziel is one of many lieutenants, and he has this sort of vampiric evolutionary growth at the intro of Soul Reaver 1, where there's a manifestation of wings, and that is viewed as a threat to Kain, and he tears the wings off and casts him into this abyss. And then Wraith Raziel appears, many years later, and that's where the first game picks up, and you play as Wraith Raziel, trying to figure out what happened, why Kain betrayed you, and what led to this. And it's a massive, deep kind of Shakespearean Gothic video game series. So yeah, that's where The Dead Shall Rise comes in. We are more or less exploring Raziel's past before the events of Soul Reaver 1.
Yeah, so we're coming up on the 25th anniversary of the original Soul Reaver game. And that's kind of, I guess, a little bit of the impetus of why this is coming out now. Again, it's a beloved property. The last game, I think, came out in 2003, so it's been a number of years. I'm sure fans of the video game series would love nothing more than to have, a new modern game with either Kain or Raziel or both. We don't know anything, everybody. We don't know anything about any kind of video game development or what have you. This is more about this Kickstarter, which is for this graphic novel, as I said, which is launching sometime in August.
Well, we don't know for sure when it's launching, actually.
Okay.
So just to clarify, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah. So the press release I got said sometime this month, but hopefully sometime in August. But when you see this drop, whatever day that this episode drops, everybody, will be the day that it goes live. So if you're seeing this, go to the link in the show notes. The Kickstarter is live for this graphic novel. But again, as Josh was saying, it's a very rich world and it's a complicated story, and each of the games builds on the lore of the previous ones, and it's, not only were the games really fun to play, kind of these puzzle action type games, But again, it was the world, it was the voice acting before that was even really known as a thing, and they were just fantastic games. So, Josh, can you talk a little bit about, with such a rich world that was built by the original game developers, Edo Studio, I think was the one that made it. Can you talk a little bit about where there was space to kind of expand on the story? Because so much of, as you said, kind of after Kain and Raziel sort of have their split, and Raziel becomes a wraith, so much of that was explored. But you mentioned this being a prequel.
Yeah, there's so anyone familiar with the games, and to preface that, we're structuring this in such a way so that it still works for those that aren't familiar with the games. But for the fans, the people that have played it, those that are coming back to this, there's a number of pretty major events that occur in the backstory of this whole series that they're really alluded to and talked about, but we haven't actually seen them play out. We've only heard about these specific events. So those are sort of like touchstones in a sense that there's some very specific ones that we're focusing on, and we're giving readers, an audience, a chance to actually see how that happened, how those events occurred, and what they really mean to the grander story. So we're approaching the lore in a very respectful, true way, so that we're not here to change or manipulate, what's been structured, right? We're here to elaborate on it, and because there's such a large span of time between Blood Omen and Soul Reaver 1, there's a lot of room to play. And Crystal Dynamics has been, I've worked with them very closely since this has started. I mean, I'm texting them daily, Zoom calls, emails. They're very, very involved, and they've, provided a number of materials. Like I have like a 200-page, first and foremost, I'm fairly familiar with this as a fan. I've got Raziel, tattooed right here on my forearm.
That's
so
awesome.
I'm pretty familiar, but I have this like Bible of sorts to reference that's massive. They even have like intricate, like insanely detailed graphs of timelines, because there's paradoxes and there's time travel in the series, and that changes timelines. So a lot of like very specific details, and because we know exactly, because they provided all that stuff, we really have a strong sense of where we can go with it and where we can't. Yeah, so that's really what we're focusing on. But again, we as an audience, we only know really Wraith Raziel. We don't really know Vampire Raziel, and we don't really know Seraphin Raziel, and we don't know what Raziel was like before he became Seraphin. So there's a lot of like opportunity there to
Yeah,
play.
and he's such a great character right from the start. Again, I mean, to the point where I bought a video game action figure. I had never done that before, and yeah, one of my favorite games of all time. So again, everybody, this is for the prequel graphic novel. We don't know anything about any future development for video games, but I will say this: if you ever wanted there to be another video game in this series, if this campaign blows up, there's a better chance of that happening. That's all I'll say. That's all I will say. And I also remind everybody, Josh and I know that times are tough right now. So the thing that you can do to help out him and his team that's putting this graphic novel out, other than obviously joining the campaign, is just spread the word, right? Like maybe you love Soul Reaver, as much as Josh and I do. Raziel is one of your favorite characters. Maybe you even have a tattoo of him, just like Josh does. But times are tough, and you just don't have the ability to join the campaign right now. We get that, right? We get that. But the other way that you can really help out is by sharing this on social media. Tell your friends about it. Tell your local comic shop about it. So anybody that does want to be a part of this campaign knows that it's going on, knows that it's live, and has a chance to join. That's the way you can really help out, other than being a part of the community and checking things out. So again, we don't know the exact date, but by the time you listen to this, the campaign will be live. Other than getting the actual graphic novel, Josh, at this point, do you know any of the other tiers or rewards that are going to be offered? Is there going to be any kind of prints, or what are some of the other things that people might be able to get as a reward?
Absolute insanity. I can't stress enough. We've had a dry spell for this franchise. since 2003, and then it's like the dams have the walls are broken, and it's insane. So yeah, part of why I got this, the opportunity to work on this is my company. We licensed this, right? So not only are we developing the graphic novel, but we're developing a lot of merch. And I mean, if this is going to be out once the campaign is live, I suppose I can just name all of that. What's been announced, as of this moment in time, we have very high end latex masks of Kain and Raziel that people can use for both cosplay and for display. We approached it in such a way that if you're not into cosplay, it'll sit on a shelf and look like a badass sculpture. We have 3-foot Reaver replicas. We'll have the common version, and then we have 3 color variants. We have a soundtrack featuring, composed by Clayton of Cell Dweller, featuring Matt Heafy of Trivium. And we have a huge, massive array of apparel. So we've got multiple T-shirts, hats, clan flags, wall scroll maps, so much stuff. It's just mind-boggling. There's stuff I'm forgetting. And then, of course, yes, we have three different variations of the graphic novel. So 3 different hardcovers with 3 different covers, including a deluxe slipcase with more content. And then we also have original art and 2 print bundles. So one print bundle is the new. It includes new art that we created and commissioned and developed ourselves. And then the other one is a print bundle with a certificate of authenticity from Crystal Dynamics that features rarely glimpsed and never before seen concept art for the previous games. So that's just a taste of it. There's more. So yeah, it's pretty epic.
Yeah, that's awesome. I can't wait to I definitely got to get a hat. Definitely got to get a T-shirt. I can't wait to rock my Soul Reaver shirt. So again, everybody, link in the show notes. You can go check out the campaign. It's live as of you viewing this video. In terms of kind of timeline, Josh, for fulfillment, where are you in terms of the graphic novel? Are you still working on it? Is it being drawn? Like, where are we in terms of when people might be able to get their hands on this?
It'll be next year. We're aiming for like I have to be careful with what I say, but it'll be I would say first half of next year is when things will be fulfilled. We have outlined the whole story. We've written more than half of the script, and we're like a fifth of the way through art.
Gotcha.
So it's very much in process now, but we will have some select pages that we specifically did first to preview for the campaign. So people will get a good look at that after they click off of this podcast.
Yeah, so again, link in the show notes, everybody. Go and check it out. Obviously, if you're a Soul Reaver fan, this is the first new content in a really long time. You got to be as excited as I am. But as Josh said, making it new reader-friendly as well. Being that this is a prequel, if you're not familiar with the story or the games, definitely encourage you to go and check those out. But it's almost like this can be your starting point where you can jump on, and it can be your gateway into the games and the world and that part of the story. Would you say that's true, Josh?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're structuring it in such a way, like I said, that it's leading up to the events of Soul Reaver 1. And yeah, we're approaching it and developing the characters, Raziel in particular, in such a way that even for fans, it's kind of like they're coming at it new, right? Because they're seeing this side of the character that they haven't seen before. So yeah, it is a complex series, but we're distilling the important, vital information and putting it on the page in a way that will make sense for everybody.
Was that a particular challenge? Like you said, we haven't seen, pre-Wraith, we haven't seen much, if any, of pre-Wraith Raziel, pre-Vampiric Raziel. You wonder, such a great character, but how much of those, being transformed into a vampire changes personality, and then, from a vampire to a Wraith after being betrayed by Kain. You're going back. Obviously, there's hints of his personality that come through. I mean, he is sort of a noble, as you mentioned, character, so you want to stay true to that. But you're sort of writing him in a way, with the personality that maybe we've never seen before. Was that a tough balance to make sure that you kind of paid homage to those glimpses of his, his true self, his core character that we get in the games, but it's an earlier, less experienced? I mean, in a way, it's like, man, this guy's got no idea what's coming, what's going to happen to him, over the course of his existence. I think that would be a challenge a little bit.
Yeah, the whole thing's been a massive challenge, to say the least. And there's a lot of, this is a really passionate fan base.
Mm-hmm.
And I've already seen so much. So there's pressure for sure. But I can say that when this happened, I knew where I wanted to take the story from the get-go, because as a fan, I knew what questions I wanted to have answered, things that I've always wondered about. But we do see enough of a glimpse of who Raziel was. In Soul Reaver 2, you see Seraphan Raziel. You fight him, you fight yourself, and he's an asshole. And he's but that provided a lot of opportunity. Why is he an asshole? What caused this version of him to come about? So there's really 3 or 4 iterations of Raziel, and they're all pretty much unaware of one another, right? So in some ways, there's freedom there, because you want to make sure that it's still the same character, but disconnected enough from the version of the other iterations of him that exist. But really, what ties it all together, and what we've been extremely focused on and aware of, is the diction and the prose, and making sure that this sounds like the characters. That's been a really important aspect to the whole writing process. So I think that helps kind of pull it all together in a lot of ways. I really do feel like when I am going back through and rereading this, I can hear the voice actors on the page. I feel like we've done, Angie and I, not to pat ourselves on the back too much, but I feel like we've done a pretty good job with that, and that helps. That helps tie it all together. But yeah, there's creative liberties that we have, and we're excited about. But there are, like I said, there's plenty of nuggets of information that exist about who Raziel was at these certain points, at least as far as being a Seraphan and a vampire. So.
Yeah, and that's your co-writer, Angie Hodapp. I hope I'm saying that last name correctly.
Yeah,
and then,
you got it.
In terms of art, I mean, there is a consistency of the look and feel throughout the video game series of kind of what the characters look like and what the world looks like. So who's the artist on the project? And I imagine you're trying to stay true to that kind of same style, right?
In a way, we also wanted to approach it in a fresh way too.
Okay.
So I can say that the art for the comics, the one shots that came out, this is a very different look.
Gotcha.
But it still has that very. The artist is Juan Samu. He's the pencil and inker, and Zach Atkinson is colors, and then Jeremiah Lambert is the letterer. And we've all worked together, so we have this really good dynamic process. But the artwork is very much tonally it fits the world of Nosgoth, but it has its own look. That was part of my goal. It was for one, I really like Juan's work, and I considered a lot of different artists that we could work with, but I wanted this to be our own thing. That the Dead Shall Rise is its own thing. So yeah, it very much you look at it and you'll know that it's a Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver for sure, but it also has its own look, without a doubt.
Yeah, I mean, well, that makes a lot of sense when I stop to think about it, because obviously, if this is before Kain's, becoming a vampire and kind of the corruption of the pillars and what have you, where the world started to decay, it should look a little less dystopian, I guess you'd say. The world hasn't quite reached the level of rot, I guess we could say, that it does, later in the series. So you're going to want it maybe to look a little brighter and look a little more, like the natural world, I guess we could say.
Yeah, and we certainly see that version. We see more of that version of Nosgoth, the version that we know we do, but we do see hints of other times, and we are jumping around through time, but not in the way people think, and I don't want to give away how we're doing that. Mm-hmm. But we do see Kain. This was fun, and because people will see this in the on the Kickstarter and in the trailer that will drop, we get a show of different version of Kain. He looks a little bit different, and it's sort of the version between Blood Omen 2 and Soul Reaver. So it's this like mid-evolutionary stage where he's not that like greenish gold with the huge crown growths, although we do see that version of Kain in the comic. But it's also not the like pale white Blood Omen that has 5 fingers. It's kind of right in the middle between those two. So that's been fun because we're showing different iterations of these characters, Raziel and Kain. But also the world, and we do see glimpses of Nosgoth without the pollution and all of that. So yeah.
Yeah, it's so awesome. Again, if you're not familiar with it, you're probably listening to us going, wait, what the heck are they talking about? Man, I sort of envy, if you don't know anything about this world, how much you have to discover. So, again, link in the show notes, everybody. Go and check out the Kickstarter campaign. Let your friends know, especially if you have older cousins or whatever. They probably played Soul Reaver like we did back in the day.
So weird to say back in the day because it still feels like fresh in my memory. But yeah.
I know. I played the heck out of it, and God, it had such replayability. It was just such an absolute fun game. So, but anyway, everybody, campaign is live as of now. If you're listening to this, please go and check it out. As we're winding down here, Josh, any last thoughts to share with our audience? Anything that you want people to know about this project?
Well, I just know that a lot of love and passion really went into this thing. This is something that we're all very excited about and proud of, and I hope that resonates with everyone else and that it shows, and we appreciate everybody who gives it a chance. I'm very excited to see Kain and Raziel back finally, and like you said, hopefully this is the start of more to come. So back it, support it. That's the best way to see that happen. So appreciate it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm excited for a whole new generation to discover as well, because again, it's just, I mean, it wasn't just the gameplay. It was really the story and kind of the immersion that you could feel such a rich world, and the ideas that were there were so amazing. And so again, if you're not familiar with it, highly encourage you go and check it out. There's a lot to discover, and it sounds like there's going to be some really cool merch as well. So best of luck with the campaign, Josh. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it.
And to all you listeners, I want to thank you for joining us as well. We appreciate the support as always, and we will talk to you next time.